So it is possible that everything on the outside of your world looks absolutely perfect, but inside you're feeling pretty rubbish. So, like something's missing and something's not quite right. And I know that's true because that's exactly what happened to me a number of years ago. And you don't need to be in crisis. You don't need to be in meltdown or be thinking that everything's going to go horribly wrong tomorrow for you to notice this feeling. And I guess what I wanted to get over in this video is just to be aware when you start feeling this disconcertion or this like restlessness or uneasiness in your life that persists for more than a few days or a few weeks, because that's a signal or a sign worth listening to, and it's worth doing something about it. Now, I know that's true because, as I said, I was in that state a few years ago. And in fact, I lived with that sense of dissatisfaction for about 10 years. At the time, I was a managing director and co-owner of a large brand and marketing agency here in Edinburgh. I live in Edinburgh in Scotland. We had like 55 employees. Financially, everything was going really well. We were winning lots of awards. We had a great team, great clients. Everything from the outside looked great, and indeed at home, I had a nice house, a nice car, a good family. Everything from the outside looked really good. But inside, I just felt there was something not quite right. There was something missing. Now, it wasn't a good and a disastrous feeling to start with, but what I did was I chose to deal with that dissatisfaction by drinking and numbing that feeling. And what started off as just taking the edge off at night to make me feel a little bit better just actually got worse and worse and worse. And as the feelings inside didn't get any better, I used to drink more to try and make myself feel better. And that led in disaster. So after about 10 years of feeling those feelings, in 2016, I was in a terrible state. I went into rehab twice. I was full-blown alcoholic, drinking all day, every day, and I lost my business as a result of that. So a number of years sober, and a much more grounded and wiser being, I'm able to look back at that time and look at what happened to me and how I've come out of that sort of state with a much greater clarity. So much so that I've actually written a book about it. It's called The Habits of Happiness, and I've got a course called The Habits of a Meaningful Life. It's based on the book. And I'm helping people to guide them through these disconcerting parts of their life, and to understand the sort of the pain that we're feeling or the discomfort that we're feeling. I've created a little model framework I've called the 3 types of pain. And the first type of pain really starts as the subtlest pain, and it probably expresses itself as a slight uneasiness and maybe a slight discomfort, but the general feeling is there's something missing, there's something not quite right. The sense that, is this it? And I think a lot of people get this at some point of their lives, but particularly in your midlife. So like 40s, mid 40s, early 50s, you've done all the career work, you've raised a family, done whatever. And as you edge towards the back end of your career, we start thinking, is this really it? And it's not just about work, it's about relationships and, what we do in our spare time, how much spare time we feel we have, and how much meaning there is in our lives. And I think that's the point, is that sense of, is there something missing, is really a lack of meaning. There's a lack of consistent, meaningful, fulfilling tasks that we're doing in a day in, day out basis. We're just basically doing the old routine, and no matter how successful it might mean on the outside, or what it look on the outside, and how much financial benefits we get, if it's not meaningful for us, it will leave that gap. And if we don't spot that, because it's very easy, it's a very subtle feeling, if we don't spot that early, if we don't do anything about it, that sense of there's something missing grows and grows and grows to a sense of feeling lost, completely lost. And this is exacerbated again in later years when big things in our life start changing. So It could be that the kids move out of the house and we're left on our own for the first time, feel like we've done our job as parents, or indeed our parents start getting older and iller, and maybe die, and or we're made redundant at work, or we feel less useful at work. The onslaught of AI makes our jobs very confusing, and it's all a very big changing world, or relationships change. So anything could, throw us off kilter, and if we've not really addressed that core feeling, and indeed if we're numbing or distracting ourselves from that sense, that subtle discomfort of there's something missing. For me, I was numbing and distracting myself with using alcohol. For other people, it could be food, it could be overeating, it could be shopping, over consuming, gambling, pornography, whatever it might be, going out, lavish holidays, anything where you think, oh, I'll just spend my way or distract my way out of this emotion. If you've not tackled that subtle discomfort and something big happens, then all of a sudden you're thrown into a state of feeling completely lost, and that subtle lack of meaning becomes very, very acute. And that's not a nice place to be, that feeling lost. And I know a lot of people who feel that at the moment, either because there's been a big change, or things have got to a head at work where it just really feels this isn't right for me, but I don't know where to go next. I don't know what to do about it. And this sense of doubt and confusion can linger and make those feelings even more acute. And then that leads to the final part, the third part of the model, which is life is hard. Because once we get to that stage and we've not been able to address what's going on here, then this sense of life is hard is every day is a struggle. It's a struggle to get up in the morning. Life feels difficult. We don't see the point. And all those distraction methods, the drinking, the eating, the shopping, the gambling, whatever it might be, social media, they all become more and more a way of coping. And actually, that's just the way we live our lives, and we just exist in that level. And so I see that pattern again and again and again. And indeed, I just read a study recently. I think it was the University of Surrey. They did a survey of about 100,000 people, and they were talking about this sense of connection, or connection to work, or engagement at work, and how meaningful people are finding work. And the findings show there's a real dip when people reach their sort of mid-40s. And I guess that's the sort of people that I sort of align with, because that was my experience. I've been through that. I've been to the extremes of life being difficult and dealing with it in completely the wrong way. And now I see a much better way to deal with it, and indeed a much more proactive way of working through it. And I've got this idea of a midlife rebuild project where actually there are steps you can take, and there's a process you can go through. There's a mindset you can adopt, which makes the second half of life so much more exciting, so much more appealing, where change is something that we yearn rather than something we fear. And so that's something that I'm working with people at the moment on, and I'd like to share more about. So I'm going to be making more of these videos, sort of expressing or sharing my own journey into a midlife rebuild, and the lessons I've learned, and how others can learn from me, in terms of things you can do to make that second half of life so much more exhilarating. When you wake up in the morning, you just think, yes, and another day, because that's the way I really feel about life at the moment. And indeed, it's funny, because all the trappings, all the things that I thought would make me happy, like the job, the career, the money, the status symbols, all those things have gone. I'm earning a lot less money than I was back then. I've still got the nice house, but the income's gone down, and no more status, much smaller car, fewer holidays, all those sorts of things. And yet I'm significantly more happy. But that sense of happiness, this sense of contentment, it's a different type of happiness. Again, in my book, I talk about spiritual happiness, or meaningful happiness, where that happiness is much more about freedom and connection, and feeling whole and authentic and fulfilled. It's not just about excitement or pleasure or desire or fulfilling desires. It's much more. It's a deeper sense of happiness. And I really don't think many of us in this Western society understand that or have experienced that, because we're brought up, we're educated, and taught how to find happiness by buying things, by we associate happiness with money and achievements, etc., etc. And I think, or I've discovered that that's not the case. And so that's exactly the journey I want to share. Anyway, that's it for today's video, and I'll be sharing more on this channel soon. Okay, see you now.